welcome back to another episode of Jazz Biz Buzz. Today, we'll be engaging in conversation with Mehvish Waliany, Chief Operating Officer, Alkaram Studio, and we'll be talking about the interesting retail fashion industry of Pakistan. So let's begin. Assalamu alaikum, Mehvish. Kya haal hai aapke?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you for having me, Andali.
It's our pleasure. So Mehvish, let's start with a very basic question. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself, where you started from, and how did you end up in Alkaram Studio?
I have a very unique story in terms of where I come from. I come from a very unrelated sector. I've had about 2 decades of financial sector experience, and that too in a very niche kind of a job. I used to primarily look into infrastructure and capital markets and debt syndication.
Yeah.
That was my job before I got introduced to the Alkaram Studio story. And what really attracted me to this story was how this place was calling out for any individual who could come and help with business transformation and really make an impact in terms of helping this brand with its growth journey.
So do you enjoy this more or the financial sector more?
It's hard to answer because financial sector is what built me up. Whatever I am today, whatever I can contribute to this sector is because of the financial sector. But the last 18 months have been exceptionally personally rewarding as far as my own growth and learnings are concerned. And I hope I have been able to give that back to this company as well.
So in the past 5 years, as you've mentioned, a lot has changed for Alkaram, and you guys have started a very brilliant retail network. How did that start? Where did the idea come from, and how are you coping up with the competition?
So Alkaram Studio has been in the league of retail players for, I would say, at least 7 years, if not more. Like any other retail player, or textile-backed retail player, so to speak. We've had that journey where the textile parent decided to also extend its domestic business by setting up retail, their presence in retail space. However, retail sector itself has come a long way. And somewhere over there, Alkaram Studio needs to do some kind of a catch-up and growth journey. Which is a realization that has set in the past few years amongst the group and the sponsors. And there is a commitment to put this brand up on the map as one of the leading fashion retail brands. So on that note, the brand has had a very intense last 24 months or so in terms of its journey, and particularly post-COVID, the way the brand has approached its business strategy and the way the brand wants to position itself to the Pakistan market. Again, within that space, we've had plenty of learnings and we've made plenty of strides as well.
Yeah. Given the fact that 7 years ago, the retail industry was already quite established in Pakistan, I'm sure Alkaram had a very strong brand strategy and a very strong product strategy to enter into the market. So why don't you tell me a little about the pricing strategies and how the supply chain and demand worked in this particular arena, and how you actually, entered into the market and also became one of the biggest players?
So Alkaram Studio always had this big advantage of having a textile giant backing its supply chain. A big chunk of what we put in our stores is produced by our parent company, Alkaram Textile. And to that effect, we always had a pricing advantage. We always had a supply chain advantage. But having said that, we feel that a lot of other retail players in the sector have done tremendously well despite not having a textile parent backing it. And those are the examples for us to consider. And for us, the most important bit that Alkaram Studio today is focusing on is to channelize the supply chain strength that its parent gives the retail brand, and use it and pass on that advantage to our end customer, so that they have in these economically challenging times, they have an affordable product and they have something pleasing to wear at the end of the day and take home with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Technologically speaking, the way business was done a decade ago and versus now is completely changing because of everything relating to technology. Every single industry, despite the fact that it had nothing to do with technology before, now is adopting some kind of advancement. In your retail networks, how are you managing? How are you bringing digitalization and technological changes?
So, Andali, I think the fact that whether or not technology should be involved in a business is no more a choice, I would say.
Absolutely.
Be it the financial sector that I came from, where technology played a huge role in wherever banking sector is today, or even a fast fashion industry like Pakistan retail sector, in which Alkaram Studio operates in, and perhaps the need for technological intervention is even more pronounced for our sector, given how fast things move here. From one collection to the other, from one week to the other, the buying behaviors change, the fashion trends change, and how you take those decisions back to all the way back to your vendors, including our parent company, which is one of our major suppliers. And I feel if you do not have access to those data points, your decision making, unfortunately, will be really lagging behind where the pace at which this industry moves. Customers, there are 4 seasons in a year. There are at least 3 big festivals this country celebrates. There is economic downturns and upswings. Plenty of stuff happens during a year, and retail industry has to be so agile to respond to all of that.
Absolutely.
So, coming back to technological interventions, there are, to my mind, the way this retail sector is structured, I feel that 3 key areas where technological intervention can play a very crucial role. One is the back end, which is our supply chain. Right from the point of planning demand and issuing orders to our vendors, to managing their payable cycles, and all the way to the downstream distribution. What geographical regions should be getting what kinds of collections, what kind of stores should be housing what quantum of inventories, how often should those replenishments be, what is the right time for a collection to hit the stores, and what colors should perhaps Lahore be wearing versus Sakhar. So understanding consumer behavior is somewhere technology can play a very, very crucial role. And this could be through consumer apps, again, something that does not happen often enough in Pakistan. Perhaps you have a Daraz app that connects to its customers, studies their consumer habits. But you'd be surprised at the level of amount of data that you can get. We are a B2C business, and if we start understanding our customer habits on any given average month, we have at least a million or more than a million worth of footfall in our stores.
Wow.
All over Pakistan. And if those million customers are coming, some of them would be repeat, some of them would be kids, some of them would be first timers. God knows what kind of consumer data points we are missing by not having a tool to connect with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a lot of learnings can be established if you have an effective tool which can study consumer habits and consumer data.
Yeah.
So that perhaps for retail sector would be a huge win if we get to that level. And again, you can design, you can go as far as customizing your products to suit customer needs, and perhaps even reach better sale numbers compared to what you're doing today. And some of the big success stories are, I was just reading about this very interesting tech firm called Stitch Fix, which it's a California-based firm, and they try and find customized outfits to match the customers that they interview through surveys and through polls. And similarly, Nike by You is a service through which Nike prepares customized sneakers completely to suit
Yeah.
a consumer's needs. So customization can take you to new retail heights as a player.
Yeah,
I feel
customer
it can
experience.
be a very serious differentiating factor.
Yeah.
Not just for Alkaram Studio, but probably for the entire retail sector. It's a service that we're not giving to our customers
Yeah,
today.
you don't see this kind of stuff in Pakistan at this point in time, at
Exactly.
least. All the customization is actually happening at the tailor's end. You get an unstitched thing and then you get
Absolutely.
tailored it out. But I think this kind of customization driven by data points, driven by technology is something that probably we are still lacking.
Correct.
While we're talking about it, I think there's also another really interesting thing that Metaverse is actually bringing, and the opportunities to build your own store virtually. What are the plans for Alkaram Studio to sort of enter into that particular arena? And do you see yourself building yourself a metaverse store?
Well, right now, I would say that it's still something that's in trial phases. But what one does read when you're reading about international brands, there are certain brands that have already ventured into it, like Adidas, Nike, and I believe a few high-end fashion brands as well. I feel that metaverse is something that we are yet to see a success of, but eventually perhaps there may be no escaping from metaverse and the learnings that come out of it.
Absolutely.
Some of the places where you can see their utility, like having virtual dressing rooms, knowing what you look like, wearing a certain makeup product or a certain top or a certain bottom or a certain scarf, it makes a huge difference if you can virtually envision yourself, right? If the tools are available on your website for the customer to try on your outfit and see what you look like. So yeah, at some point, I think we will be giving it serious thought. But in the meanwhile, the stories that keep inspiring us are those of IKEA and Home Depot, where you can see what your furniture could look like in your space, in your house, and that utility is instant and it registers in the mind of the customer. So clearly, wherever technology can help add value to your customer's life, make their shopping experience better, those parts of technology should be studied, and we should seriously think about bringing them into the business.
So while we're not as close to virtual reality, e-commerce has done a lot good in Pakistan, and Alkaram Studio also have their presence online. And I see that a lot of business recently has been shifting from retail outlets, from physical outlets to e-commerce. What's the trend that you've seen over here, and how actually is e-commerce better for your business?
So Andaleep, the way I look at e-commerce is the fact that e-commerce has become an inevitable reality, just like we were talking about metaverse, what it might be in probably a few months or years. COVID has definitely given an instant recognition and boost to this channel of business. But I see it as a very essential ongoing reality that you should not just take into account for a certain period of time when physical contact could not happen, or physical spaces could not be opened up.
Yeah, because behaviors are also changing with it.
Exactly. And also, the consumers, now your upcoming new generations of shoppers who are mostly in their mid 20s to mid 30s, at least who have the economic buying power, their preferred channel perhaps in more ways than often becomes e-commerce. So e-commerce itself has to add that kind of value to your end user to be available as a channel to that particular generation and offer the relevant products as well. For Alkaram Studio itself, I think we experienced a boost like everybody else during COVID days in our e-commerce business. But we also admit that perhaps the kind of attention we should have given to e-commerce as opposed to the traditional brick and mortar channel, we did not do up until the last 12 months or so. And the more we are building into that, the more we invest into that channel, the better results that we're observing. And our e-commerce contribution for this particular fiscal year has grown from 10% previously to about 25%.
Wow, that's
So,
amazing.
so yeah, a bit of an attention to detail to this channel has taken us to places.
Yeah.
And we do look towards this channel as a big booster for our growth as well.
Yeah. So since we are talking about Alkaram and textiles and fashion, as a woman, I feel like asking this question to you as well. There are lots of different kinds of fashions coming in. The change happens very quickly today. This is the trend. Tomorrow, that is the trend. The fast fashion is really difficult to keep up, even as shoppers. Also, there is something called sustainable fashion that's gaining a lot of popularity among buyers. So what is Alkaram doing, and what kind of fashion trends is Alkaram into?
I think I'll take your first question first. You've spoken about a big pain point and a big disconnect
Yeah.
between the word fast fashion and sustainability,
Sustainable
because both
fashion.
are
Yeah.
technically contradictory to each
Yeah.
other. And the space that most of the retail brands are now sort of transitioning into are, slowly, gradually, they're moving away from, unstitched to value-added products. And by value addition, I mean, giving a completely stitched product to the customer, and if possible, at their doorstep, without them even moving away from their homes.
Yeah.
Now, that itself inherently is against the spirit of sustainability.
Yeah.
Now, within that realm, how do you find
Balance.
opportunities to be sustainable? It could be in your consumption behaviors. It could also be by demonstrating recyclability in the product, in the yarn that you're using, for instance, or in the shopping bag perhaps that you're putting on your counters for the customers to take away, or perhaps discourage them altogether from buying shopping bags, as many of the big international brands are now doing by charging for them. Basically, charging for bags is more of a signaling from the brands: be more sustainable, be more conscious, consume less, if possible, wherever possible, and recycle wherever possible. I often see these big brands. Somewhere I saw Marks and Spencer label very nicely below a pair of denims that was displayed, that this particular denim consumed 28% less water than a usual denim. And perhaps that was a message screaming out loud to reach out to a sustainability conscious generation, which is your millennial generation. They are very messaging conscious. They are very conscious of what messaging the brand stands for, the brands that they consume. And we have a lot of global examples where brands have been able to build connection with their consumers based on sustainability messaging and authentic ones. And then there are brands who lost consumers because of a fast fashion messaging and not giving enough weightage to sustainability. So for us, again, Anleep, it's a journey. I think what is also important is where you see the economics of producing more and trying to save costs versus giving a product which is conscientious and more sustainable to your customer. And perhaps an end-to-end 100% of a solution may not be possible today, but what we can do and what we are trying to do is look for little pockets where we can put our little contribution to the sustainability value chain.
Okay. So, Mehvish, we are reaching towards the end of our interview. Since we are having such an interesting conversation, I'd like to give you an opportunity to talk about anything that you want to add to this particular interview to give more knowledge to our viewers and to us sitting over here. So, if you have any closing remarks or notes on this.
I think I would just like to share a few learnings that I've had. Being part of retail sector, I'm relatively a newcomer when it comes to retail sector. And something very valuable that I have learned from retail, which I don't think my 2 decades of financial sector experience ever taught me, is the lesson of resilience. Retail sector has, so coming from an industry which was completely oligopolistic, to an industry that faces all kinds of challenges, whether be it the macroeconomic challenges, be it changing consumer habits, changing consumer buying power, even supply chain challenges, whether climate related challenges, everything, every aspect, regulatory changes by the government, everything impacts this sector. This sector has it real in all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
And what really works in the sector's favor is how the workforce is by its very nature trained to respond to all these challenges, and it's a very, very resilient workforce. Without even realizing, the workforce has no choice but to be very resilient. And for me, this is the biggest lesson that I have personally learned by being part of this sector. I feel that retail sector gets much less credit than it deserves for this resilience, because COVID, the response to COVID, I think the way retail sector responded to COVID, but perhaps completely showcased and highlighted what resilience is all about. And even today, the sector continues to respond very creatively, very uniquely to everyday challenges, everyday changing scenario that we face, be it political, be it economic, everything.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for letting us interview you. It was a very nice conversation. We had a lot of fun chatting with you.
Likewise.
And we will be back with another episode of Jazz Biz Buzz, so stay tuned.
Jazz Business, designed to help you grow.